Imagine dedicating your entire life to serving your country, sacrificing time with your family, risking your safety abroad, even carrying the scars of war, only to be fired in the most careless, disrespectful way possible. No warning, no recognition, just gone. That's what Senator Tammy Duckworth confronted Michael Rigas about, and the way she dismantled his excuses should leave every American asking one question: how can we trust leaders who treat public servants this way?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senator Booker. Deputy Secretary, I have to add my voice to the chorus here and express how appalled I am at how the department conducted Friday's rifts, unceremoniously firing hundreds of dedicated members of the civil service and the foreign service with only a half-hearted hand wave at the appropriate process. My office has received direct outreach from dozens of those impacted by these rifts, and they have confirmed what we suspected would happen and what members of this committee directly warned the department about. These are public servants who have made countless sacrifices to serve our nation, and the department's actions are short-sighted and frankly sloppy. I would expect better of you. That they would take an already difficult moment and you have made it even more precarious. And I can only scratch the surface in my short time of heartbreaking personal stories that I've heard. These are public servants who are not only concerned about their livelihoods, but the impacts of our national security and our ability to respond to the next crisis. You claim that you went through a thoughtful process to execute these rifts, completely defy reality. To illustrate one example, individuals who were hired under veterans preference were riffed with no acknowledgement of their veteran status in their service summary that you included in their letters. Why should we believe that you went through a thoughtful process if you can't even check this basic box of acknowledging their veteran service? And what about the multiple examples I've heard of individuals who were riffed while on TDY overseas, who are now being put up in five-star hotels at taxpayers' expense while they start to get home, cut off from email access?
So thank you for the question, Senator. So the RIF procedures were done in partnership with the Office of Personnel Management. We did ask every employee in the weeks and months leading up to it to update their personnel files. And one of the challenges is there isn't a central repository.
You're blaming OPM and the employees that you riffed?
No, not at all. What I'm saying is
the shoddy way that you went about doing this?
The employee file is owned by the employee. So if it does not have all of their past history, if they've worked at multiple departments or agencies and their SF50s have not been uploaded into their employee file, it's possible that some detail of their service may have been overlooked. So that's why every employee was asked to review their employee file before the reorganization to ensure that every aspect and every step of their service was included in their employee file. But if there are any issues that were overlooked, or if anyone feels that their employee file is incomplete, we'll certainly address that immediately.
It sounds like you're blaming the victim here. And the people that I've talked to did update their employee files. How do you reconcile that the Trump administration's own professional development program requires domestic service for FSOs to advance in the senior foreign service? This is something he implemented in 2017, yet you seem to exclusively target FSOs who are on domestic tours. They're on these domestic tours because President Trump in his first term said you need to do a domestic tour. As soon as they're on a domestic tour, you fire them.
So
how do you reconcile that?
Right. So as we noted, the reorganization did focus on the domestic-only operation of the Department of State. It did not focus on our overseas or global footprint. We have about 14,000 foreign service officers. 10,000 of those foreign service officers serve at posts overseas, and we do have about 4,000.
You're not answering my question. How do you reconcile that?
Well, we had to be looking at the RIF. It could not fall entirely on the civil service. We had to be equitable in terms of how we address the reductions in force at the department. The vast majority of the reductions did fall on the civil service, but we did have a little over 200 foreign service officers who were impacted by the reduction in force. And like I said, that's regrettable, but when we had to eliminate offices and functions, the people who were encumbering those roles were the people who were RIFed according to the federal government rules and regulations surrounding RIFs.
But they were on domestic tour because President Trump told them they had to do it. So this is ridiculous. Okay. I want to go back to the subject of meeting our obligations. The cuts to EAP's team that managed U.S. engagement in ASEAN while the Secretary was at the ASEAN Ministerial is just a perfect illustration of the shoddy and foolish way that you did this. It's clear that the real winner of this move is going to be the PRC as you eliminate our expert and capacity to engage in this critical region. Under your proposed reorganization, who will manage the Mekong issue and the Mekong-U.S. partnership?
So all of these functions are going to be handled at the regional bureau level. So that would be the East Asia Pacific Bureau, and then all of the country desks within those bureaus will handle the individual.
They don't have an overseas counterpart office.
I'm sorry, who doesn't have an overseas counterpart?
The Mekong-U.S. partnership does not have an overseas office.
So anything dealing with a particular region will be handled at the regional bureau.
And where is that?
The regional bureau is located in Washington, D.C., and the
deal with.
the country desks are here, but their counterparts are at every post in every country.
But there's no
overseas.
counterpart overseas. This is the thing. You're firing people doing very important work without regard to these programs on a program that the PRC is really in the wrong on, and we had an opportunity to develop relationships. I'm astonished that you would do this to the State Department and to the national security of this country. I'm over time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Tammy Duckworth's fiery exchange with Michael Rigas wasn't just about administrative mistakes or missed details. It was about something much larger, how a government treats its own people and what that says about its values. When Duckworth pressed him on the sloppy, almost careless way hundreds of civil servants and Foreign Service officers were fired, she wasn't only standing up for those individuals. She was sounding an alarm about how short-sighted decisions can ripple outward and weaken the very foundation of America's institutions. Think about the people she's defending here. These aren't faceless names on a government spreadsheet. They're men and women who have sacrificed stability, sometimes even safety, to serve the country. Some are veterans who put their lives on the line. Others are Foreign Service officers who've spent years overseas, living away from their families, representing America in challenging environments. These careers are not just jobs, they're commitments, often lifelong commitments to something bigger than themselves. Now imagine giving decades of your life to that kind of service, only to be cut loose in a rushed and chaotic process that doesn't even acknowledge your veteran status, or that fires you while you're serving on assignment overseas. That's not just poor management, that's a betrayal. And that's why Duckworth's voice cracks with both anger and disappointment, because she knows, as someone who herself lost her legs serving this country, what respect for service should look like, and what she sees here is the opposite. But the problem goes beyond personal injustice. Duckworth highlights the way these cuts were carried out without regard to America's global strategy. Entire teams responsible for managing U.S. engagement in Asia were gutted, while the Secretary of State was literally at a major regional summit. Programs that countered Chinese influence in the Mekong region were left without leadership. This isn't just bad optics, it's dangerous. By undermining America's diplomatic capacity, these decisions hand our competitors an advantage. When the United States weakens its voice abroad, it creates a vacuum, and countries like China are more than willing to fill it. And then comes the evasion. When Duckworth challenges Rigas, his response is to shift blame to the employees themselves for not updating their files or to the Office of Personnel Management for structural shortcomings. But Duckworth calls it exactly what it is, blaming the victim. It's easier to say, well, they didn't do their paperwork correctly, than to admit the process was sloppy, rushed, and disrespectful. But that kind of avoidance is exactly what erodes trust in government leadership. What Duckworth forces us to see is that bureaucracy isn't just paperwork. Behind every policy, every staffing decision are human beings. People with families, with mortgages, with kids in school, with years of sacrifice behind them. When leaders treat those people as disposable, it's not just cruel. It damages the institutions those people sustain. It makes government weaker, less effective, and less capable of defending America's interests both at home and abroad. And here's the deeper takeaway. Leadership is about responsibility. True leadership doesn't pass the buck, doesn't hide behind technicalities, and doesn't disregard the human cost. Duckworth's questioning is a reminder that accountability isn't optional in a democracy. It's essential. Because if leaders can toss aside public servants without thought or care, then what does that say about how they'll treat ordinary citizens? This exchange is bigger than one hearing. It's a lesson in what happens when power forgets its duty and when service isn't respected. It's a call to remember that the strength of America has never just come from weapons or money, but from the people willing to serve with dedication, integrity, and sacrifice. When they are mistreated, the entire nation loses. And this is where you come in. Don't just watch this and move on. Engage with it. Share it. Leave your thoughts below. How do you think government should treat those who dedicate their lives to service? And if you want to keep learning from these powerful exchanges, where senators push back, where leaders are held accountable, where truth is demanded, make sure you subscribe and stay with us. Because democracy isn't something we watch from the sidelines, it's something we all have to fight to protect.